I feel the need to get this story out there. Things have been happening recently. It's all linked. It all started in my first house, and now it follows me from place to place. I don't know what to do anymore. Maybe someone here knows. Let me start at the beginning. The house I grew up in had always been a little odd. We had moved there when I was 7. My mother and her fiancé were taking over the place to run their catering business that they had. The work was long and hard and kept them working from 12 p.m. until well after midnight on function nights. It was an interesting childhood, where I had both too much and too little freedom, my evenings dedicated to helping clean, polish, and do dishes, while my nights were spent completely unsupervised, with only my dog Millie for company. Strange things started happening there not long after we moved in, and I'll recount them to the best of my ability. It all began with my bedroom door. It was an old house we lived in, and, no surprise, it was a little drafty. My bedroom door banged and clashed several times a day, always startling me and sending my heart fluttering. One particular incident comes to mind. I was sitting on my bed, pretty upset about the round of bullying I had received that day, having always been the weird, unsociable kid. Slowly, the tears started falling. I sat on the edge of my bed, crying. My mother was totally unaware of the emotional trauma I was currently reliving, when I heard a noise. The bedroom door creaked open slowly. The handle turned and I looked for the comfort of an adult, only to find that no one was there. The door shut pendulously and left me sitting, terrified as the handle sprang back up into place as it clicked shut. Moments later, I felt a weight move the mattress to my right as someone sat down next to me, only to find that no one was there. Terror raced through me, and I immediately threw my bedroom door open and pounded down the stairs, skidding with speed into the living room to find Millie, my dog, standing in the living room door. I slipped past her in panic and crept behind the huge L-shaped sofa, shivering in fear, only to hear her powerful growl ripple out into the hallway, snarling like I had never heard her snarl before. Somewhere in the house there was a slam, as if from a door. Somewhere in the house something was upset. The feeling of nauseous fear was palpable, the hair standing up all over my body as I quivered and stifled my sobs. I slept on the sofa that night with Millie, lying her head on my lap, protecting me until my mother finished her shift in the kitchen. I remember some lie about falling asleep watching TV, and was shuffled to my bedroom alone. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I began to sleep as much as I could in the living room, going to bed only when my mother was about to finish up in the kitchen, waking up at 5 a.m. to watch kids' TV, and the only show being on at the time was Magic Roundabout, which I hated, but it was better than sitting in silence. The sense of dread surrounding the hallway going to my bedroom took almost a month to fade back into obscurity, but the memory remained. Meanwhile, the work was hard on my mother and her fiancé. They ended up splitting. The toll on their relationship was too great, and my mother was left to run the place herself. My grandmother and grandfather helped. My grandmother ran the bar attached to the facility, while my grandfather helped out a little in the kitchen. But they too only stayed until 10 p.m. when they finally vacated and took the 20-minute drive home, leaving my mother with all the rest of the work to do. I spent as much time finding excuses to help in the kitchen as possible, doing dishes, peeling potatoes, or helping cook. It's where I got my cooking skills that I still have today, but it was never enough, and my mother, being a responsible adult, would send me to bed again, alone. I had one true friend, my best friend in school. She was nerdy like me, and a social outcast, so we fit together well. When we were around 8 or 9, we were allowed sleepovers. It was then the trouble started again. With company, I was far more comfortable in my room, and we would play PlayStation or listen to music late into the night. We had been running around in the hallway in the dark, messing around, and had finally retreated to the safety of my bedroom with a faint sense of unease. Just as we closed the door and went to sit in the chairs under my newly built loft bed, the door opened again. Only a few centimeters, but enough for us to notice. It slammed forcefully and made both of us jump, staring blankly, only for it to open and slam again. The rhythm became faster and louder, slamming and banging, leaving us screaming. Luckily, my mother had been coming to check on us to see if we wanted a snack. She heard the slamming and the dog barking. She shouted up the stairs, "What the hell are you two doing?" The door stopped instantly. When she came up to the bedroom, she found us both in a hellish state, both terrified. We were allowed to sleep in the living room that night with the dog. This was an escalation. From this point on, there was little rest for anyone in the house. Whispering echoed in the hallway, audible even with the TV on in the living room. I was no longer the only one who heard it. Dark voices filled the hall, night or day. My mother and grandmother saw a shadowy shape walk across the living room. It stopped and looked at them in the broad light of day. Now, my mother grew up Catholic, but in recent years she had been flirting with becoming pagan. It had always appealed to her, and now seemed like the right time to practice. After being woken up for the second time to the sounds of the TV being turned on in the living room, only to find everything turned off when she went down, she finally decided that enough was enough and purified the house. The house smelled of sage and salt water for a long time after I came home from school. That bought us a few quiet months, during which my mother had found a new boyfriend, a nice guy who was a little young but polite and looked after me as best he could. He showed me a lot of kindness, the weird kid who spent more time alone than talking. He was the first one to get hurt. He had been walking up the stairs when he felt it, a hand on his shoulder. Turning his head to check for someone, he was slammed face first into the stairs, right outside my bedroom door, and he was pinned. He couldn't breathe or move, his heart in a vice grip. He was there for several minutes before the dog barking alerted my mother. She took him to the hospital, fearing a heart attack, despite his age, but nothing showed on the scans. No one could explain the incident, so it was put in the box along with all the other disquieting stories from our house. He was nervous in the house. He felt unwelcomed and unwanted. He began spending time either in my mother's company or mine, fearing to be alone. It wasn't the last time we would be attacked.